Becoming a yoga teacher is a blessing. It is also a great privilege and even a bigger responsibility. Definitely having the right tools and techniques down to become a successful yoga teacher, it's super important. Things such as cueing, knowing anatomy, knowing the roots of yoga, knowing Sanskrit, knowing injury prevention. These are all valuable things. There's also other things we're going to talk about in this video, as well as considering if you want to go part-time or full-time and what you should be thinking about when you're making those huge decisions. There's nothing that I love more than to teach yoga and also meditation, which I will talk about in another video. For now, let's just dive right in. Hi everybody, welcome to my channel, Hatha Vida. I'm Tanya, and today we're going to be talking about what are some things that you should definitely be looking into when you're doing your first 200-hour teacher training. And especially if you're looking to become a teacher, these are some things that I have found really helpful in my career as a yoga teacher, and I'm going to share them with you. So I've been doing yoga for almost over 20 years, and I've been a teacher for about 12 years. And there are things that I have found that I wish I would have known when I first did my 200-hour. And I'm just going to share them as they come up in my head. They're not in any priority. They're just what I think it's really valuable. First, I think it's really important if you try to find a teacher training where they show you how to cue really well. Because once you learn a yoga sequence that you're going to be sharing with your students, you want to be able to step off the mat and walk around the room and be able to help your students by either offering them adjustments or just verbally cueing through the class. So having someone you can learn from that knows how to cue really well will come to your benefit in the long term. Another thing that you should consider in looking in your teacher training is learning anatomy and injury prevention really well. And maybe you're not someone who's into anatomy, maybe you think it's boring, but it's actually really interesting once you start to learn how the body really works, what's going on inside, and how the joints connect one to, from top to bottom. And when you learn that really well, you're going to be able to help your students better, because not everyone has your same body. Not everybody has your same physicality or maybe ability in some of the postures. And you're going to need to be able to help and support whoever is coming into your class, especially students who come in with previous injuries or current injuries, or maybe something is just not feeling right in the body. So learning anatomy and injury prevention will help you out in the long term. So definitely look into that. Another thing that it's really important is to try to learn from a teacher who really can share with you the history and the value of yoga, who can really impart in you how yoga has developed, why it is that we're doing yoga, and how they share it with their students in a way that is respectful, that continues this lineage that has been passed on for almost 5,000 years. Remember, in the past, this was just like a verbal study that was just passed on from teacher to student to teacher to student. And you want to be able to become really familiar with that history and be able to share the wisdom within that history, especially from, let's say, sources like Master Patanjali or the Bhagavad Gita. So when people come to your classes, you're able to share that wisdom and continue this long thread of knowledge from teacher to student to teacher to student. Something else that will be really valuable is to learn the Sanskrit names of the yoga poses. And maybe you're thinking, well, I can just say them in my native language, whether it's English or Spanish or French or wherever it is that you're from. But actually learning the Sanskrit names of the yoga poses really enriches the class You don't know who's walking into your class. And if you have a foreign student and maybe they're familiar with the Sanskrit names, they'll just be able to follow along with you. And they won't have to work as hard to try to understand your own language. Another reason why it's really important is because Sanskrit is one of the very few original languages here in the world. And actually, speaking Sanskrit has an energetic effect in both the person speaking it and the one hearing it. It has a very powerful, energetic vibration. So look into that and definitely consider trying to at least learn a few words at a time of each one of the poses and integrate them into your classes. And then another thing that's really important is learning how to do adjustments really well. And this is both hand adjustments, also verbal adjustments. This is when you walk up to your student and just, show them the posture and just let them copy you, because not everyone's going to want a hand adjustment, but maybe you can still support them by just visually guiding them through it. And for the hand adjustments, if you learn them really well, whoever it is that does want them, you'll be able to give them that support and maybe even take them a little bit further in the posture where they're comfortable and help them grow over time. And another thing that is also really important is to, when you're thinking about which studio should I do my teacher training at, try to take a few classes with the senior teachers, try to create a sense of connection with both the teachers and the other students, and see if the studio's values align with where you want to be as a teacher in the future. Because wherever it is you're learning from, it's almost like you're becoming a carbon copy, and that knowledge and that way of teaching is also going to be passed on to your students from them. So keep that in mind. And this is just something that happens at the beginning until you start learning and formulating your own language and guiding your students through both postures. Okay, so now let's talk about, should I just leave my full-time job and, go full-time for yoga as a yoga teacher, or should I become a part-time teacher at the beginning? And this is a question you should definitely be considering, especially how it is that you're going to be paying for your rent and your health insurance and your utilities, and be able to put some money in the bank, and also be able to have extra money to treat yourself really well. And so taking those things into consideration, and how many hours you're going to have to teach a day, a week, a month to create that income will make your deciding factor of whether you should be becoming a full-time teacher right away or part-time, and then just building up from there. I personally was a part-time teacher for a really long time, and that helped me out because then I didn't have to worry or think about scrambling for extra money or extra gigs. And then over time, I was able to transition fully. So remember also that burnout is real. It can happen. I've seen it happen with me and other teachers. So consider how much physical energy and stamina and enthusiasm do you have that you can carry on. Let's say if you're teaching, 2 classes a day, or 3 or 4, and then multiply that by the week and the month. So it starts to get really intense. And so how would you be able to balance having that, being able to show up for your students in a way that is positive and enthusiastic, that people feel good in your presence, and also making time for you and whatever it is that's going on in your life as well. So that's really important. Another thing is remembering that you can only teach your students from what you know, from what you practice. And this is really important because a lot of times, if we think that we can teach things that we ourselves are not practicing daily or weekly, then how can we possibly know what is going on in our students' body when they're in those postures? How can we really support them in a way that it's good, that it's wholesome, if we don't do it ourselves? So remember that one key point, only teach from what you know. And over time, as your own practice evolves and develops, then you'll be able to add other postures that maybe in the past you didn't, because you're practicing them yourself as well. Lastly, another thing is, how are you going to make time for your own practice? Because probably if you're considering becoming a yoga teacher, it's because you're passionate about sharing yoga because of the own results you have experienced in your life, both physically, both mentally, even spiritually. And so you need to find a balance between your own practice and when you're sharing with your students as well. For me, trying to have a daily practice is really important because then I know I can show up for my students better and I'm here 100% better. And so keep that in mind, and also making space to rest and recover so that you can always come back fully present with them. Okay, everybody. Well, I hope that what I shared with you was helpful. If you have any questions, share them in the comments. I'm happy to make a video in the future about it. Otherwise, I wish you luck in your yoga journey and hopefully see you next time. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe as well.